So, what's up, guys? Today we're going to talk about 7.2 glycolysis and basically how it relates to chemical energy. So, let's get started. What's glycolysis? It's basically the splitting of glucose or breaking down of glucose, which is a type of sugar, and glycolysis literally means the breaking down of sugar or sugar splitting. And these things break into molecules of something I still can't pronounce properly. Pyruvate. Whatever. So, where does glycolysis occur? This breaking down of glucose and other sugars occurs in the cytoplasm, and it occurs in two phases. It occurs in the first phase is energy investment phase, which is the time period where it's basically spent, the cell spends ATP. And the second phase, which is the energy payoff phase, in which the substrate level phosphorylation makes ATPs and basically repays the investment that it made while wasting those ATPs that it made in the first place. So, glycolysis is a fundamental core process, and it's shared by most cells, including human cells. So, let's talk about this a little bit more. So, glycolysis is basically the glucose comes in and it breaks off in the glycolysis, and the pyruvate oxidation basically takes away the oxygen and makes it acidic. And it breaks down one more time again in the oxidative citric acid cycle, and then it goes to the oxidative phosphorylation. And in each of these steps, energy is being released in the ATP form. So, to see how the process is done, we're going to look at this 10-step diagram. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to first talk about the energy investment phase and the energy payoff phase and how it's done. So basically what happens is each time a glucose is broken up, it makes ATP. So on the first one, we have 2-ADP and 2P, and the P stands for the pyruvate, that thing. Oh my god. Yeah, that pyruvate thing. And basically when those two things come together in the glucose and they break apart the glucose, and then it releases 2 ATPs. And basically in the payoff phase, the 4-ADP and the 4P, which is the pyruvate thing, they come together and they form 4-ATP, which means that the 2 ATPs that they used are being paid back with 4 ADPs when it comes to the payoff phase. Same thing with the NADH, and it's also gaining some pyruvates and H2Os, which is water. This time, for real, we're going to look at the 10-step diagram, which is how the process of glycolysis happens. And the first 5 steps are basically the investment, and the second 5 are the payoff. So, what happens first? So, as you see, number 1 right there, I don't know, my laptop doesn't let me write on this thing. I've tried, trust me. The hexokinase basically transfers the phosphate group from it goes from the ATP to the glucose. So basically it makes it more chemically reactive, and the charge of the phosphate is also trapped in the sugar cell, so it doesn't change from one charge to another. So basically this glucose turns to a glucose 6-phosphate, and that is also again converted into a fructose 6-phosphate. And then we have the fructose 6-phosphate which is again transferred with a group of ATPs to the opposite end of the sugar. So basically, I'm pointing to this thing. I mean, like you guys can see me, but basically it goes from one end to the other of the sugar, investing a second molecule of ATP. And this is a key step of like the regulation of the glycolysis, because like this is how like energy is broken down and ATP comes off. So, and when step 3 is done, we go to step 4, which is where the adils cleaves. So basically, this thing, I don't know how to pronounce this. A class close. Adil, yeah. That basically something leaves the sugar molecule, and then it leaves it into two different types of 3 carbon sugars. Basically, you have what's it called? 3 carbon sugar on one side and then another one on the other side. I'm sorry, guys. These words are crazy. So basically, and then what happens after that happens, you have a dihydroxycetone. Who comes up with this? Phosphate. So basically, it covers basically it converts between DHAP and G3P. Thank God they have acronyms for this. So basically, this reaction, like, it keeps happening over and over again. It goes from one side to the other, and it never reaches equilibrium. And basically, G3P is used in the next step as fast as it forms, basically. And that goes on in step 6, which is, and this is a close-up of, they had a close-up of each one, but I deleted them because I don't see the point. So basically, yeah, that's that. So basically, after step 5, what happens is we have 2 sequential reactions. We have the G3P, which will be oxidized by the transfer of electrons to NAD, which will form NADH. And that basically uses energy from this exergonic reaction. And that's a phosphate group, which is attached to the oxidized substrate, which makes it a high energy product, and it releases basically 2 NADHs. So you guys already start to see the high energy payoff phase. Step 7, which is this phosphate group, and that basically is transferred to ADP. And basically, what the G3P, which was a carbonyl group, will have been oxidized because it releases 2 ATPs to a carboxyl group, and then which will become an organic acid, which is a 3-phosphoglycerate. And basically, when we get to step 8, the enzyme in step 8 will relocate the remaining phosphate groups in order to make sure that we can release more energy from them. And in step 9, we have the analose, which causes double bond to form in the substance of the phosphate, and then it extracts the water from it, and then it yields the phosphoenolpyruvate, which is a compound which has very high potential energy, which we'll be able to release in step 10, when the phosphate group is transferred from PEP to ADP, which is also another example of the substrate level phosphorylation, which forms pyrulovate, which is also another type. Basically, that releases 2 more ATPs. Basically, if we compare what we had before and now, we were able to give only 2 ATPs, and basically we invested 2 ATPs, and we got 2 NADHs and 4 ATPs. No, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 M's in my bank. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed my video, or not. I'm head ass. Peace out, everybody.